What's going on YouTube? So what's this spaceship looking car we just pulled up in? Well, that is the all-new Hyundai IONIQ 6.
And we want to know, has Hyundai created an electric sedan that can finally take down the Tesla Model 3?
That's what we're going to find out right now. So let's get started here under the hood. Now, of course, this is an EV. You're not going to find an engine. You will just find a half cubic foot frunk, not really useful of size.
A few crackers or something in
Maybe
there.
you can store some coupons in there if you want. But let's talk about these specs, because that's very, very important for a vehicle like this. So you're going to have two different battery capacities on board, a 53 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack and then a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. That is the long range. So the SE standard range model will come with that 53 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that produces 149 horsepower. However, most people are going to be choosing the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack.
Now, if you go for the single motor rear drive model, that's going to make 225 horsepower and actually have the longest range in the entire IONIQ lineup at 361 miles if you go for the SE trim level. Now, if you want all-wheel drive as well as the most horsepower, you will opt for what we have today. This has 320 horsepower, goes 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds. And as far as range on this one, you can have up to 316 miles if you opt for the smaller wheels, or if you opt for the larger wheels like what we have today, 270 miles of range.
That actually makes this one of the only vehicles that can match the Tesla Model 3, and it is the highest range you can get on a mainstream electric vehicle here in America. Now, of course, having lots of range is very good, but we also want to charge fast, and thankfully this does have Hyundai's 800-volt charging architecture. That means it charges extremely fast, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes with a DC fast charger. But we got the specs out of the way, so let's go ahead, shut the hood, and take a look at this very, very interesting design. So you've seen the IONIQ 5 on this channel numerous times, and taking a first look at this IONIQ 6, you'll immediately tell this looks absolutely nothing like that. Hyundai calls this the Streamliner because really the shape of this was shaped completely by aerodynamics at the center. Now, if you take a look at the hood, it has this slope here. That's because this has a 0.22 coefficient of drag, making it one of the most aerodynamic vehicles in the entire world. As we say in the South, that makes it slick as snot. But the overall look of this, like I said, is very smooth in the front. Of course, this is an electric vehicle, so it's going to be mostly flat. You have just this little part down here at the bottom, which functions as your grille for airflow, and you have active grille shutters as well. And then as we come over here to the headlights, though, this is where you're going to see the connection to the IONIQ brand and the IONIQ 5, because we have the parametric pixels. This is also repeated all throughout the exterior of the vehicle. Full LEDs, you have over 700 individual pixel elements, which have a really cool three-dimensional look. Now, as we move to the rear, this is where things start to get really wild, like college spring break wild.
Yeah, this is a crazy design. I think it's the most crazy in the rear. And as far as just design elements in general, you'll notice the really sloped back roof design. It goes into this spoiler, which also has some pixel elements in here that connect with the taillight. So Drew, I'll have you go ahead and hop inside so we can see if all the elements are LED. So we have LED brake light portion all the way across the back. Up here on our spoiler as well, LED turn signal indicator, and we're also going to have LED reverse lights integrated all the way down here in the bumper. Now, it goes without saying, you can see it with your own eyes, these are all going to have that really cool pixel design. I have to say, here in person, it looks so futuristic and cool. Now, as far as other design elements, you will notice down here in the lower area, this is all going to be finished in a piano black finish. Makes it look nice and premium as well. Of course, this is an EV. You're not going to have exhaust pipes.
Now, in electric vehicles, you're probably aware that the wheel size does impact the range. And we do have 18-inch alloys on your SE versions. Those are going to be the versions that get the best range overall. These are 20-inch alloys here with the SEL and the Limited. They really stand out. Very nice look. That's of course very large for a sedan, and we have a lot of cool contrasting elements. Hyundai always does something exciting when it comes to the wheel options. Coming up here to our mirrors, you're going to have standard body color as well as heating and blind spot monitoring. However, if you want power folding, you will need to choose the limited trim level.
Now, we said at the beginning of this video that it looks like a spaceship, and you can see that best here at the side. Now, in terms of your overall length, you're looking at 191.1 inches, which is about 9 inches longer than the IONIQ 5, about 6 inches longer than a Tesla Model 3 for reference. So this is a pretty good size sedan, to put it that way. Now, as far as some of the design elements, we have blacked out window surrounds, we have a blacked out roof, at least here in the front part. We're also going to have the flush mounted door handles here. That helps with aerodynamics, and that's standard on every single IONIQ 6 model. Dropping down to the lower area, we also have this cool silver finish here. It really has a nice look, especially when you pair it with this white paint color. Now, as far as the safety systems, you're probably curious as to what they're going to include on this IONIQ 6, and Hyundai is including all 4 of your active safety systems as standard equipment. The only caveat to that is that you get Highway Drive Assist 1.0 on the base models. If you go for SEL or limited trim levels, that will throw in Highway Drive Assist 2.0, which allows for lane changing. But guys, that's going to wrap up this absolutely wild exterior design. Now let's go ahead and check out the inside and see what you're going to get in there.
So there's a lot of cool things on the inside. Let's go ahead and get into that. First, we'll take a look at the key fob. As you can see, this is not the typical Hyundai key fob. We have a new design. Actually, the shape of the buttons make the Hyundai logo, so that's pretty cool. It has a kind of pebble-like texture. You do have the ability to precondition the vehicle via a remote start system. On the limited trim level, we do also have the smart park system. And of course, intelligent entry is going to be standard. This also has Blue Link Plus, so you can control the vehicle wirelessly. And we also have the digital key system, so you can get in with your phone. Now, as I walked up to the vehicle, the mirrors folded out and the door handles went ahead and popped out. And check out that cabin. Just like with the exterior, we've got a lot of really cool and futuristic design elements going on. But first I want to talk about, some of the more basic things, which would be your color and material choices. So the SE is going to come standard with cloth seating, but when you go for the SEL or the limited trim level, that's where you'll get this leatherette seating. Now you've got a few different color choices. You have black, gray, which is what we have today, or you also have a dark green and gray color scheme if you want something more unique. But as far as this seat itself, very comfortable, nice perforation on board here, feels very realistic. And the seats themselves are plenty adjustable. We have 8 ways of power adjustment with 2-way lumbar support, and we also have 2-person memory seating. But let's go ahead and climb inside and take a look at all the details. So let's get away from all those bugs outside and take a look at the overall cabin materials first of all. So a lot of this cabin, basically all the main materials actually, are made from recycled, renewable materials, different types of textures. It's a very unique cabin compared to other types of traditional Hyundai products. Over here on our door trim, we have this kind of leatherette material with this interesting texture on it. The door trim itself is also going to be a hard touch plastic, but it's going to have a lot of texture. I don't know if we can really pick that up on camera, but it's got these kind of grooves that runs down it. And one of the unique things about this is the fact that this works with the 2-tone ambient lighting. So this vehicle has the ability to have 2 different color ambient lights, and it diffuses over top of those grooves. So in essence, really, the lighting in here is the interior decoration in place of something, more traditional like wood. But let's move on to the upper dashboard. It's going to be soft touch all through here. We've got this single vent effect. You'll notice these wing accents on both sides. In other markets, that's where you would have the digital mirrors on the outside, but that's not legal in the United States, so we don't have that. We have kind of a dark trim through there, and then we have the floating center console, all nicely padded with that same leatherette material from the door trims. But to fire it up, we do have standard push button start located right there. But like always, let's go ahead and move in a little closer for a first-person perspective at all the details inside the cabin. First of all, we'll start with our gauge cluster. So just like with the IONIQ 5, we have the dual 12.3-inch displays. We don't have the white bezel though, so I think the black bezel looks a lot better, and you have a little silver outline around it. As far as the gauges themselves, it's a digital setup, so you can reconfigure certain design elements, and when you change the drive modes, it will also change as well. We have the limited trim level that's going to get us the blind spot camera system. However, I do want to point out, we do not have a head-up display. That's actually not going to be offered on the IONIQ 6, even though the IONIQ 5 has the excellent augmented reality head-up display. We also have rain-sensing wipers. And pulling back here to the steering wheel, we've got that unique IONIQ design. It's just 2 spokes kind of squared off at the bottom, nicely leather wrapped. One difference from the IONIQ 5 is the fact that these are interactive pixels now. So you can't really see it since it's so bright right now, but if you activate voice commands or something like that, it will interact and light up kind of like an Alexa would. And as far as the steering wheel adjustment is going to be manual, tilt, and telescoping. Now, I didn't mention it earlier, but over here on the door trim, you'll notice we don't really have any traditional controls. It's very styled, which means a lot of your traditional things are going to be located in different places. So our mirror adjustments are going to be located over here. And then if we move over to the center console, this is actually where we're going to find the controls for our windows. One touch auto up and down for the driver and the passenger. You also have your lock controls as well as your auto brake hold. And this would be a good time to go ahead and talk about interior storage. So let's go underneath the center console first of all. Pretty nicely sized. It goes down a decent amount. We do have a felt lining in it as well, and you have 2 USB-C ports. Now up in front of that, we've got a nice little cubby. We're using that for our key fob right now. You've also got your 2 cup holders. You have a large area up here. This is your wireless phone charging pad. You have another USB port. But of course, the real news with this design is that this is a bridge-style center console. So you've got a huge amount of space. This is a big enough space you could fly a plane through there. Or in more practical terms, you could store a crap ton of your favorite coupons down there, along with all your wires and just about anything you could imagine is going to fit down there. So very practical front interior space. Now you might be wondering, where is the shifter? Well, it's actually going to be a column mounted style shifter. This is the new electronic version, so you're just going to twist up for drive, twist the opposite direction for reverse. And when you go into reverse, you're going to find a standard backup camera on the lowest 2 trim levels, but if you go for the fully loaded limited trim level, that's where you're going to unlock this 360-degree camera system. As you can see, really nice resolution on this backup camera. Of course, everyone's favorite trick though is that this can go into the 3D view. So just like the really expensive Genesis products, we now have that here with the Hyundai brand, and it is just as cool as ever, being able to spin all around the vehicle. Now for park, you're just going to press the P right there on the end of the stock. And moving on up the console, the next place we come to are our climate controls. So this is a standard dual zone automatic setup. It's basically a touch capacitive setup. So you'll notice the buttons here. You've got all of the controls, so you don't actually have to go into the display itself, but they are still touch capacitive. And then as far as your heated and ventilated seats, when you press that button right there, that's where it's going to pull up the menu. You have 3-stage heated seats as standard equipment, and then 3-stage ventilated seats will be included if you choose the limited trim level. Now you also notice right in this same area, we have our audio controls. They are also physically rendered, including the volume knob, which I know a lot of you guys like. As far as the sound systems, 6 speakers is going to be standard. 8-speaker Bose premium sound system, though, will be on the limited trim level. So let's go ahead and give that a sample. Yeah, so overall sound quality is nice and strong. Okay, so let's take a look now at our main infotainment system. So like I already mentioned, this is going to be a 12.3-inch display. Right now I'm in Android Auto. You do, of course, have standard Apple CarPlay as well, but I might as well go ahead and point this out right from the start. I know a lot of you guys are always asking about this. This is the wired variety. Unfortunately, they have not quite upgraded that yet to the wireless version. Hopefully that will be something they'll do in the future. but for now it is going to be a wired connection. Let's go back into the main infotainment system. So this is Hyundai's built-in version of the infotainment system. It does have special graphics though for IONIQ duty, so you've got some things like your battery range through there. It's going to be white graphics that have a different look to it. You do also have built-in navigation, and this can do route planning for different charging stations. Additionally, the whole entire vehicle does have over-the-air update abilities, and that is a first for the Hyundai brand. Now moving on up here to our mirrors is going to be auto dimming with HomeLink remote on the SEL and the limited trim level. And then up top here, let me go ahead and open up our sunroof. This is what Hyundai calls a wide sunroof. So it's not quite a panoramic style because that would really cut into the rear headroom. Instead, it is a pretty large panel. It does open up, have a power sunshade, and that's included on the limited trim level.
Well guys, we're in the all-new IONIQ 6's rear seat, and let's go ahead and talk about how this compares to, well, its main rival, the Tesla Model 3, but also just to sedans in general. Now, I want to start by talking about your legroom figures. We're looking at 42.3 inches of legroom, a little over 39 inches of headroom. As far as real-world feel, though, when you sit back here in the IONIQ 6, you're going to notice that this is a very spacious place to spend time. I've been incredibly impressed. The first time I sat in at an auto show, I was like, wow, this is a lot of space. And living with it today, I certainly say the same thing. So I did bring my bendy ruler all the way to Arizona. And as far as knee space, I'm looking at over a foot. I'd say probably 13 inches of space between my knees and the seat back. I'm 5'9" for reference. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who is 5'8". It's just a ton of space. I think it's really even bigger than those 42 inches of legroom would suggest. My feet cannot really slide up underneath the seat, so that is one thing I want to point out. I also want to point out that the rear floor is completely flat, so that makes this middle seat passenger actually quite comfortable as well. As far as your headroom is concerned, with that sloping roof design, you might be concerned about that. I'm 5'9". If I sit fully up super straight, my hair is barely grazing the ceiling, so if you're like 6'1", 6'2", it might be a problem to ride in the rear of the IONIQ 6, but other than that, it's very spacious. So yeah, with all that space back here and the really cool two-tone ambient lighting that Drew mentioned in the front, I think you could really get it on in this rear seat of the IONIQ 6. Now, as far as the features are concerned, Hyundai's not going to leave you in the dust here. We have vents here in the center. We also have USB-C ports. Down below that, we have a little storage cubby. I'm not really sure what for, but you also notice this right here. This is a really cool feature. So on the limited trim of the IONIQ 6, we're going to have a household outlet. We just slide it over like that, and we can plug in our laptop, whatever we're going to need to charge up. We can do so in the IONIQ 6, which is really nice. I actually kind of like the position of it too. It makes a lot of sense if you're using a laptop to just have the cord come up from there as opposed to in the middle. Now, as far as other features, center armrest does fold down. We have two cup holders inside. Let's check out our door trim. It's going to be pretty much the same design as the front. It has a lot of different design elements going on. The materials are going to be hard touch for the most of it, but we do actually have window switches on here, which is something you don't see in the front. And then you have this cool little storage cubby up in front of that, as well as a bottle storage down in the very bottom. Now, I did almost forget to mention that in the rear, you're not going to have any heated rear seats, so no toasty buns for you. Now, coming around to the cargo area, you might expect this to actually be a hatchback. It's a traditional sedan trunk, but in order to open it, you just press this little button right here, and you will notice that it is fully power. Very nice feature to see on a mainstream vehicle like this, and that's actually going to be standard on every single IONIQ 6 model, the full power open and close tailgate. So that's quite cool. Now, as far as the cargo capacity in here, we're looking at 11.2 cubic feet of cargo capacity, which is smaller than Sonata, it's smaller than the Tesla Model 3. It's not a ton of space back here. I will say it's pretty wide, but it's also very shallow. I'd say it's not really much more than a foot deep, so don't really expect to put a ton of stuff back here. That being said, they do have a little bit of underfloor storage in here, our chargers right in this area, and don't forget you have that half cubic feet up in the front. I do want to point out though that the seats do fold 60-40 split, so that adds a little bit more usability for the cargo department of this IONIQ 6. Now, how much is this IONIQ 6 going to cost? Well, I'm happy to tell you that a lot of the trim levels are very affordable. So we're going to have a starting point of $41,600 for the SE standard range model. Now, do keep in mind that's the lowest horsepower model. Now, you can get the SE long range with rear wheel drive, $45,500. I think that's a really good value within the IONIQ 6 lineup because that has 361 miles of range. So very impressive range figure for a $45,000 price tag. Now, of course, if you want all the fancies and all that, you can get what we have here today, which is the long range all-wheel drive limited model. So this is the most expensive IONIQ 6 that you can get. And as far as how much this one costs, we're looking at a base price of $56,100 plus a few options and a $11,15 destination charge. $57,875 is this particular tester's price. Do keep in mind that this vehicle is not manufactured in North America, so per the current US regulations, this does not qualify for any federal tax rebate. Now would typically be the point in the video where we take this vehicle out on a spin and show you what this is like behind the wheel. Unfortunately, we do have a driving impressions embargo, and in order to respect that and our fellow journalists, as well as Hyundai, we will not be driving this IONIQ 6 in this video, but don't worry, we have part 2 coming to the channel soon. So stay tuned for that, and we will be driving this vehicle, showing you everything that you need to know in the driving department. But guys, thanks so much for joining us in this in-depth review of the all-new 2023 Hyundai IONIQ 6 Limited. It's been a beautiful time here in Scottsdale, Arizona, sampling out Hyundai's latest electric vehicle. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps us out. It helps us get invited to events like this where we can show you all some of the newest content first. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for your support. It makes all of this possible. Also, check us out on TikTok and Instagram. We also have a merch store if you'd like to support the channel that way. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.